I was asked to join the Australian Voice Party by a number of valued colleagues of mine. And this has arisen because we have abiding concerns about a number of things that are going on and have evolved in the last 30 to 40 years in Australia. I think it's important to point out that around the year 1912, Australia enjoyed probably the highest standard of living in the world. If not the highest, it was very, very close. That was largely to do with the attitude of Australians in that time. Australians worked hard, they took responsibility for the energy, for their transport, for their food production, their water. They managed their money with great care. They saved money. People saved money to buy things rather than borrowed money under compound interest to a much lesser extent in that time than today. There are so many people in Australian society who are currently deeply hurting. And I'm going to refer to a list because it's so comprehensive. There are people in the fishing fraternity, for instance, who are facing a very uncertain future. I've heard all manner of dissatisfaction and frustration from the ratepayers and ratepayers associations in respect to their dealings with their own councils. In agriculture, we've witnessed an extraordinary demise. There are currently 1,200 wheat farmers in deep trouble in Western Australia. In February of this year, I was in Tasmania and I heard that they were in the process of destroying the peach growing industry, pulling out the trees, as they had already done with the apple trees. And this because the people are not being heard. Their interests are not being protected. It's being pillaged by some trade agreement that somebody has signed without going to the people and asking, not to mention talking about the implications. The citrus growers of Victoria had suffered a similar fate. And only 2 months ago, I was up north of Winton and I witnessed with my own eyes the extraordinary agonies that the cattle producers in far north Queensland are being subjected to right now as we speak. There seems to be so much imbalance. Areas such as health freedom, for instance. At one point, not too long ago, there was a competent watchdog that stood between the Australian public and provided a balance between the influence of large-scale corporate lobbying. That instrumentation seems to have been dismantled. We don't appear to have plant freedom. Regulations continue to pile up. We are subjected to waste pollution. These things are not discussed. We hear lots about carbon dioxide, which at the end of the day has to be admitted is the life molecule of all organic chemistry on this planet. Nothing is mentioned by the extraordinary volume of pharmaceutical wastes that end up in our sewage untreated and go right through the process into the oceans and our rivers. This is causing genetic disorders and all sorts of impacts that we're not even fully aware of. It's not on the table for discussion. Our waste management, solid waste management issues, emissions from industry are all downplayed, and all we hear about is the innocuous gas of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, incidentally, can be split quite easily into oxygen and highly valuable carbon products. So it really isn't the issue it's been made out to be, and could indeed make significant revenue for people who care to look and engage with those sorts of solutions. Lots of people are hurting. Parents are hurting. People are having to work much longer hours for the same money as they used to. This requires their children to be in childcare or unsupervised after school. It means that people are not at home to take care of the elderly, and that has them off into old people's homes where they can exert no benefit to their grandchildren, not to mention their own children. Well, what are our options, and how can we exercise those options? Well, firstly, we do have a political system, and it can be made to work. We have had significant disempowerment occur over the decades, but we still have a constitution, and we still have a mechanism for having our voice heard.